This video is on subtracting integers. Alright, so first let's talk about what integers are again. Remember, integers are all whole numbers, and whole numbers are numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So all whole numbers. And their opposites. So remember, their opposites are the negatives. The whole numbers are all positive. 1, 2, 3, etc. Their opposites are negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So integers include both positive and negative numbers, where whole numbers are only positive numbers. Remember that both integers and whole numbers don't include fractions or decimals. All right, let's also review quickly how you add integers. When you're adding integers, you ask yourself two questions, okay? If they're different. In this case, they are. We have one negative, one positive. Which one's bigger? Which one has the bigger army? In this case, the positive number is bigger. And you want to ask yourself, how much bigger is it? Well, 17 is 5 more than 12. So the answer to negative 12 plus 17 is a positive 5. The positive number is bigger. It's bigger by 5. All right, so that should be all we need to be able to do this lesson. So when we're talking about subtracting integers, we're actually going to turn this into an addition problem. We're going to use an old phrase that you should know from dividing fractions called keep, change, flip. Now, it's a little different from when we're dividing fractions, but it's handy to use the same slogan, okay? So we're going to keep the first number, negative 12. Now, the change means we're going to change that subtraction sign there to an addition sign. And then we're going to flip the sign of that second number. The second number is positive 67, so I'm going to make it a negative 67. Okay? Now, there's another way you can think about it too if you don't like the keep, change, flip. You can also just think about any time you have a minus sign, just change it to a plus and negative. Okay? That does the same thing. Both ways we're getting negative 12 plus negative 67. So that's how we change it to an addition problem. And once we have it our addition problem, we're doing it the same way we did in the last video. They're both negative, so we know it's just going to be a bigger negative army. And they're going to combine, so 12 plus 67 is 79. So we had an army of negative 12 and an army of negative 67. Altogether, it's an army of negative 79. All right, let's try another one. This time, these actually aren't integers. Well, one of them is. But 2.5, since it has that decimal, is not an integer. So that's why it says subtracting negatives. And we're going to do our keep, change, flip. We're going to keep 2.5, change the subtraction to addition, and flip the sign of that positive 8 to a negative 8. Again, if you just like taking any subtraction sign and making it plus a negative, you can also do that. You see, you get the exact same answer. And once we have our addition, then we're just going to do it the same way we always had. One's positive, one's negative. So we got to ask ourselves the questions. Which one's bigger? In this case, the negative army's bigger. How much bigger is it? Well, remember, if you can't tell in your head how much bigger 8 is than 2.5, all you have to do is subtract them. Now remember, when there's a decimal, you need to line up the decimal places. So I'm going to add a 0.0 to the 8, and then go ahead and do my subtraction. And I get 5.5. So the answer to this is negative 5.5. All right, let's try another one. Again, we have subtracting negatives because 0.45 is not an integer, it's a decimal. So we're going to do our keep, change, flip. We have 104 that we're going to keep. We have our minus sign that we're going to change to a plus sign. And I'm going to flip that negative 0.45 to a positive 0.45. Or, like we were saying, in this case, it doesn't really make sense for me to change this to plus and negative because then I still just have two negatives. If there's two minus signs in a row here, and notice these parentheses, those don't really mean anything. They're acting as a placeholder to separate that negative sign from the minus sign so that this and this don't kind of run into each other. So it's acting just as a separator. But in a way, it almost looks like a giant plus sign. And you can go ahead and just write that. If you have a minus and negative, that can turn into a gigantic plus sign like that. Okay? So then we can go ahead and do our addition. In this case, it's pretty easy because they're both positive. All we have to worry about is the fact that there's a decimal. So again, line up your decimals. We're going to add 2 zeros to 104 so that it lines up with the 0.45. and that's just 104.45. So again, if there's a minus and negative, you can just turn it into a gigantic plus, or do your keep change flip. Keep 104, change the minus to a plus, flip the sign of the second number to that positive. All right, here's another one. We can do our keep negative 58, change that minus to a plus, and flip that negative one there to a positive one. Or if we'd rather, I lost part of my plus sign there. Fix that. There we go. Or if you rather, change that minus and that negative to a gigantic plus sign. My board's a little funky there in the middle. You can see how it's jumping up. All right, either way, our final problem that we're doing now is negative 58 plus 1. So I'm going to do my two questions. Which one's bigger? Negative is clearly a lot bigger. How much bigger is the negative army? It's bigger by 57. It's negative 57. All right, so let's go over the rules that we just learned. The main thing that I think is pretty helpful if you're at all confused is to follow your keep change flip. That makes it pretty standard. And so keep, all we're doing is keeping the first number. So keep first number. Change, we're changing any subtraction to addition. And then we're flipping the sign of the second number. So if it was positive, I'm changing it to negative, and vice versa. If it was negative, I'm changing it to positive. So keep the first number, change any subtraction to addition, and flip the sign of the second number. The most common mistake people do is they start doing keep change flip to addition problems. Remember, first look at the problem. If you already have 5 plus negative 7, I'm not going to do keep change flip. I'm just going to say which one's bigger, the negative, how much bigger is it, 2. It's only for the subtraction where I'm doing something like this that I want to do keep the 10, change to addition, and flip the sign of the 15. Now I ask myself which one's bigger, how much bigger is it? Okay, so keep change flip is only for subtraction. There's not much point in flipping around the addition. It would work, the problem would be equal to itself, but you're making it harder. It's a lot easier to do these problems with addition. So that's why we want to change everything into addition. All right, we're going to wrap up with a word problem I want you to work on, and then we'll go over it in class. A cruise line has 3-day, 4-day, and 7-day cruises. After each cruise, a ship returns for 1 day and repeats the pattern. If one cruise of each type leaves today, when will all 3 cruises leave again on the same day? And this is a certain type of problem, and the main thing I want you to try to figure out is what you need to do to figure this out. So go ahead and try this, and then come with your answers in class.